Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for The Beguiled. The Beguiled stars Nicole Kidman and Elle Fanning, and it revolves around the story of this soldier whose leg is shot off. It's basically, well, it's not shot off, but there's a giant gaping wound in it, and because of that, a little girl goes out and finds him against a tree, practically almost dead, so she takes him back to their house, and it's a all-girls house because there's war going on and girls can't get involved in war at that time. So they're all at this house, all just learning, living, trying to wait for the war to be over. And when this man comes in, he's got this giant gaping wound. They heal him, and because of that, different things happen, and suddenly each and every woman starts to discover sexuality through this man, about the different ways that they feel about him, and how their lives are changed because of certain things that he does in the movie. The Beguiled is directed by the excellent director Sofia Coppola. She's typically hit or miss, but when she hits, she really does hit. Lost in Translation is an excellent movie. I don't own it on Blu-ray, but I definitely do want to in the future. It's a very simple premise. There's really not a whole lot going on, but it's just about a relationship between two people, Scarlett Johansson and Bill Murray. And it's so believable and it's so real. And because of that, just that one movie, I was really excited for The Beguiled. I thought that this movie had a lot of chance, a lot of opportunity to be great. The premise is very interesting, and the actors are all very, very strong, so I was quite excited to see this movie, actually. And I came out pretty much with lower expectations. I didn't think it was as good as I wanted it to be, but The Beguiled is still a very good movie. One of the most overdone sentiments in Hollywood is that war is awful, and that it's terrible, and that it's scary, and it hurts people. And that theme, while very strong, has been done multiple times over and over again. And something I love and admire about The Beguiled is the way that it shows a different perspective on that idea. That it shows how war also affects people who are not in it. There's honestly not any war scenes in this movie. You only hear it off in the background, and you see the man's gaping wound, and that's about it. That's all that comes from war. And that I really enjoyed, and it showed how even though war was not directly in these people's faces, it was affecting them, and it was hurting their relationships with one another. And that made it very creative, and that part was by far the best. It was also very subtle. That part alone was a very subtle part to this movie, and this entire movie is like that. There's nothing forced or pretentious about this movie at all. It's very quiet, it's very refined, and it intentionally uses emptiness to try to make the film seem appealing. Because the characters are all very surface. The story is very surface. There's not a lot of extreme development in it. And while that hurt the movie a lot, in my personal opinion, I really liked what Sofia Coppola was going for. The lack of humanity in all the characters. There was no good or bad here. It was only the characters' feelings towards each other. And while that tone hurt my personal enjoyment of the movie, or hurt its memorability, I really do like what Sofia Coppola was going for there. I thought that was a very strong idea. And another strong idea is sexuality. Again, that's a very overdone theme in Hollywood. And while in this movie it's not as creative as the idea of war, it's not different in any way, I really did like the way that they explored it, because the sexuality isn't just for the three women in the house, it's also for the little girls. And that could sound creepy or perverted, but it's not. The way that they show it is that these little girls are just sort of learning what it's like to be attracted to a boy. And then the older girls are feeling strongly sexually attracted to it. And the way that they showed that was very interesting, and I was curious about what was going on. I think I would have been more curious if I cared more about the characters and it wasn't as empty, but at the same time, I sort of enjoyed the different themes in this movie that really make it up, that make it what it is, because without those themes, this movie is awful. It's barren, and it's just completely forgettable. But it's the little things that Sofia Coppola does to sort of develop these very interesting and unique themes. Well, not unique, but unique in their execution themes that make this film quite enjoyable and quite well made. And the movie is also gorgeous. Just the scenery, the cinematography, the sets, all of it looks absolutely incredible. And it was a lot of the scenes were almost picturesque, and that was a good juxtaposition with the horror of what was going on with these people. That there's this beautiful scenery, these amazing sets, and yet there was something so dark and sinister going on with these people, and they achieved that through a lot of eeriness. The entire movie is very slow and it's very creepy, and there's definitely something wrong behind every single corner. There's obviously, you can tell in this movie that there is something wrong going on all the time, and that sort of kept me on edge throughout the entire movie. So that, because it's a slow burn, so that when the burn came along, I was suddenly very interested and I was curious with what was going on, and I was invested in that part. It was the Beguiled, I can say, is a very unique movie. I didn't feel invested all the time, other than probably the last part, which honestly I wasn't even all that invested then. There's a lot of issues with it, and I think I can understand why someone would give this like a 9 out of 10, but for me personally, I had a lot of issues with enjoyment, and that's not because the movie is slow or anything. It's just that Sofia Coppola's vision didn't quite mesh with me as an audience goer, and because of that, I will give The Beguiled a 6.5 out of 10. I'm not sure I can recommend this movie to anybody, because it's a very different movie. I would sort of have to know you to say if you will enjoy this movie or not, but in this summer season filled with just, repeated, regurgitated superhero movies and big blockbusters, it's refreshing to see an indie movie that's very creative, and I'm honestly surprised that this movie was made, but I'm very glad that it was. Well, anyway, that concludes my review for The Beguiled. What are your thoughts on this film? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.